It is the moment that we've been waiting for since 2011. The Phillies will play a postseason baseball game today at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. Good afternoon, everyone. Colin Daly here, live on the Philly Sports Reports Phillies pregame live, brought to you by SeatGeek. Unfortunately, Benjamin Goldstein could not be with us here today. He is covering the game at Citizens Bank Park, which is very, very exciting. He's wandering around the concourse now. I know he was talking to Phillies owner John Middleton earlier, so that's very, very exciting for him. But let's focus here on the Philadelphia Phillies. We are ahead of game number 3, the first of 2 games in the NLDS, of which will be played at Citizens Bank Park, which of course is a milestone given the Phillies' recent playoff history, which has not been bright. Now, I do want to throw it back here a little bit before I will get into our lineup for today's game eventually. The last time there was a Phillies baseball game in the playoffs at Citizens Bank Park, the lineup did not look the same as the one that we're seeing right now. MLB Vault posted this on Twitter. This was the Phillies lineup October 7th, 2011. Jimmy Rollins led off at shortstop. Chase Utley, Hunter Pence, Ryan Howard, Shane Victorino, Raul Ibanez, Placido Polanco, Carlos Ruiz, and the late Roy Halladay. That was a very good team. Unfortunately, the Cardinals went on to win that game. It was a very sad day in Phillies history in what was the best team the Phillies have ever seen. And now that was the end of that era, and the Phillies are hopefully starting up a new postseason era, as they have, I think we can all agree, have already exceeded their expectations, made it to the NLDS, and here they are at Citizens Bank Park. The series is tied at 1, with an opportunity to win and move on tomorrow if they win this afternoon. That game is coming up at 4:37 p.m. Eastern. It is 4:04 p.m. local time in Philadelphia, and we are about 30-ish minutes away from game time, 33 minutes away from game time. But we do have a conversation to have ahead of first pitch, and that is going to be Braves starter Spencer Strider. And you know, when we thought of the Phillies and the Braves facing off in the postseason, you know, prior to any of the postseason matchups being, you know, officially set in stone, Spencer Strider and the Phillies was one that we expected to see. Now, unfortunately for him, he had an oblique injury in his last regular season start, which was in August. Actually, it was against the Phillies. He threw 6 innings and allowed just 1 run, and he had his left oblique. He didn't pitch the rest of the regular season. And in the last 26 days, it has been 26 days since Spencer Strider touched the mound. He has only thrown off a mound twice. Now he's going to come in, start today's ball game in what will be one of the most electric crowds in sports we've seen in the past decade, and hopefully get the Braves a few scoreless innings. But for Phillies fans like us, hopefully Phillies can finally have some success against the Braves rookie. And, you know, you can say that he's been good for a rookie. You can say he's been good for his age. And you can say he's been a good pitcher. But really, the truth is he is elite. In his 20 regular season starts this year, he was 11-5 with a 2.67 ERA. And like I said, he hasn't thrown off a mound really at all since coming back. But what we've seen from Strider is he is always sharp. Even if it's not his best day, he'll still find a way to get outs, keep going through the lineup. And I'd expect the same thing from here today, even if, you know, he doesn't have the usual sharpness that he does. And that would be expected with him not pitching since the end of August, really the middle of August. And we've seen him many times this season. The Phillies actually have struggled against him immensely. In the note right over here, in 21 1/3 innings, he's struck out 34 batters while allowing just 3 runs. So the only really guy to have success against him this year has been Alec Boehm. He's 3 for 9 with a home run. But outside of that, the Phillies lineup has struggled. And what we've seen from Strider is 2 pitches, the fastball and the slider, and they're both very good the fastball, which is considered a four-seam fastball, by when you calculate spin rates and grips and everything, what the catcher's calling, it's considered a four-seamer. But for a righty, it has a ridiculous amount of run on it or cut on it. Depends how you want to look at it. I use those phrases interchangeably. And that's what makes it so effective, because the slider and the fastball, you'll see, will actually cross paths and go opposite directions, which is like having, a very good layover between slider and a traditional fastball on steroids. And he throws this slider almost 30% of the time, and the fastball about 70% of the time, which makes you wonder, is that all he uses? And the answer to that would be pretty much. He's got a changeup that he'll use about 3%, 4% of the time. And the issue there that he just doesn't use it is it doesn't have a ton of movement. It's very, very average, and it's all over the place. He struggles to locate it, which walks have been a problem for him this season. And when you have Strider out in the bump, he's going to strike guys out. His pitching count might get a little bit high because of all those strikeouts. His one game against the Phillies, he struck out 13, and I believe that was 6 innings, 6 2/3 innings. So his pitch count might elevate more than the Braves might want. But with that, when he limits the walks, which he hasn't been able to do at all times, those two things on top of each other, when he's at maximum pitches, he's probably only going to be able to get into the 7th. And when we know he's not going to be throwing at how long he usually does, I'd expect to only see him for 3-4 innings today, maybe 50, 60 pitches, because I'm sure the Braves, they're the defending World Series champions. They've won the National League East this year. I'd assume that their expectations are to get into the National Championship Series and eventually the World Series. That's how most defending champion teams, that's how they like to structure themselves. So if I'm the Braves, I'm not going to stretch out Strider too long, because I'm assuming that the Phillies don't have what it takes to really overcome Strider and win this series, despite them taking the first game. So that is going to dictate, I think, Spencer Strider's outing a lot in this series and how it progresses, now that we know it's going to end most likely at Truist Park in Atlanta, as assuming that, there's not a Philadelphia sweep, which one way or the other, no matter how it goes, would be very, very historic. Now for Aaron Nola, the Phillies starter. He was electric this season, bouncing back after a few rough years in a row, where initially he was excellent in 2018. This season, he capped off a regular season where he was 11-13 with a 3.25 ERA, with a 6 2/3 innings of absolute dominance against the St. Louis Cardinals, which, is very I wouldn't want to say ironic, but it's a coincidence, given that's who knocked the Phillies out of the playoffs in 2011, and one of the more relevant upsets we've seen in baseball history. And he was great in the Cardinals series. 6 2 scoreless innings. He struck out 6. He had everything working for him. There are a lot of strong right-handed bats in that lineup, and he was able to use that curveball very effectively. He had a lot of swings and misses, and he located his fastball very, very well. And I really think it's the fastball in that start that made a difference for him. You saw him pound the zone. He was able to elevate it, keep it low and away, and both of those were effective. And the curveball, as always, was great with 2 strikes. He was incredible with it. And that, if he can continue what he did in St. Louis, will be huge for the Phillies, because it's the same thing with with Atlanta. They have a lot of righty bats in that lineup. You've got Olsen. You need to worry about Acuna, who can, it doesn't matter who Acuna's facing. He's incredible. But there are some guys in this Braves lineup who, first of all, Noel's been pretty good in his career against the Braves, one of the teams he's done well against. So I really do think that this is a situation where Aaron Nola will thrive in. But we've also seen Aaron Nola, and I don't really believe in this stuff, but we've seen Nola have a few very good starts in a row now. And you think eventually he's due for a bad one. Hopefully that does not come today. Hopefully that comes sometime next season, maybe his first or second start of 2023, because however long this Phillies playoff run goes, he is going to be one of the guys heavily relied upon if this winning streak and this series winning streak can continue. And again, we know we're going to get from him a lot of swings and misses, a lot of strikes. He's going to pound the zone, going to get weak contact as well. He'll get a lot of infield pop-ups, something we've seen more of in his recent starts. And just overall, he's going to be a very, very solid guy on the bump for the Phillies. And what I've been impressed the most with him is he's able to get deep into games no matter the situation. There have been games where he goes 7 innings and allows 3, 4, sometimes even 5 runs. And is that good? No, not really. And those are the starts that Aaron Nola will look back on and say, I'm frustrated with how this turned out. But in hindsight, those 6, 7 innings he gives us and saves the bullpen is huge. Now, the good thing here is the Phillies are coming off an off day yesterday. They traveled from Atlanta to Philadelphia, and they should not have to worry about any availability in the bullpen, as everyone should be available. They really haven't had to rely upon the relievers too much outside of game one. Now, before we get into our standout stats and our keys to the game, we will take a second to look at the lineups. We've got, it's a very traditional lineup for the Phillies. The Braves switched up a little bit. You've got Schwarber, Hoskins, Real Muto, Bryce Harper's DHing, batting fourth, Castellanos in right, Bowman third, Segura. He'll bat eighth and play second base. Bryson Stott is hitting ninth at shortstop. The Braves, a little different. They've got, the top, of course, is what you've seen in the past. The bottom is when they kind of, they change it around, got some of the guys who have been sitting, who aren't bad players. I'll get to that in a little bit. Who aren't bad players, but the Braves have a lot of talent in their offense. As usual, Ronald Acuna Jr., who is tearing it up in that first 2 games of the series. He's hitting .571 in the postseason. He's batting first. Dansby Swanson, Matt Olson, and Austin Riley are 2, 3, and 4, respectively. Travis d'Arnaud will catch and bat fifth. Michael Harris II. He is hitting sixth and playing center field. Marcell Ozuna will hit seventh. That will actually bring up Vaughn Grissom. He's playing second base and batting eighth. You saw him a little bit in the first 2 games, not in a capacity as a starter. And then Eddie Rosario is going to bat ninth. He'll be in left field this afternoon. So, yeah, like I mentioned, you got Grissom and Ozuna and Rosario, who are, the top 6 are your everyday guys. And then you've got a few guys below that who are just kind of switching out depending on the matchup. And what I love with the Braves doing that is different bats in there, different looks. And that does change things from Rob Thompson's perspective, from Caleb Cotham's perspective, from the Phillies bullpen's perspective, from Aaron Nola's perspective. And, when you don't prepare for those things ahead of time, that does add a twist to things. And a lot of those guys, especially Vaughn Grissom, we don't really know who he is yet. He's only been in the majors for a few months. He's very, very young, very talented as well. So when you see that in there, that could be a challenge that stays behind the shadows for Aaron Nola. You might not see that coming. Now we have our keys to the game that are brought to you by me. We only have one today, of course, since I'm the only one doing today's pregame show. And really, it's a simple one. I feel like I've been repeating some of my keys, but I think that they're important, and I think it's pretty obvious what the Phillies need right now. One of those obvious things is Kyle Schwarber to figure it out at the plate. Him and Rhys Hoskins have been awful in the postseason. I saw something earlier, 1 for 20, 29 or something along those lines. But his timing seems off. He's not getting good swings on the ball. Rhys Hoskins really hasn't been great either. He's made some costly defensive mistakes. A lot of issues that are just things that really cannot happen to teams like the Phillies, who, they're going to need their bullpen to be excellent. They need their starters to be perfect. They need everything to fall into place to beat a very, very good Braves team. And the way he's played over these past 4 games, it's unacceptable, and it's not going to do anything for this team. It's only going to hurt them. And at this point, I don't know what you can do to fix Hoskins. So that is a whole separate story. But I do think that Kyle Schwarber needs to get it going. That is a must. Now, Schwarber has had a little success against Strider. And, of course, you cannot focus everything around Strider, because we're going to see those guys in the Braves bullpen: Raciel Iglesias, Kenley Jansen, A.J. Minter. Dylan, all these guys, the top Braves relievers, especially with these lefties in there, Schwarber and Harper specifically, the top of the lineup, those are the guys that, Spencer Strider might only pitch 1.5, maybe 2 times around the lineup. Two would surprise me. I don't know if he's going to pitch for that long. And Schwarber does have 1 hit, which, is not a lot. He's 1 for 11 with a home run. It was a home run, pretty big home run. Of course, it was one of those 3 earned runs that Strider allowed. But I think the matchup suits him pretty well. Of course, it's a righty on lefty matchup. And, I know this it doesn't sound great, but, Strider is very, very good. And the one thing I'm going to read you off right now. His StatCast percentiles. xERA, xWOBA, 96th percentile, 73rd percentile in barrel percentage, 96th percentile in expected slugging, 97th percentile in expected batting average, 99th percentile in strikeout percentage, and the walk percentage is at 40%. Whiff percentage is at 95%. Fastball velocity at 97, chase rate at 66, extension 93. There should have been one in there that stood out to you. That one should be the walk percentage. Tell that to you right off the bat. And 40 percentile obviously is very, very low. And the main thing there is they have got lefties who tend to see the ball better when a right-handed pitcher is on the bump. They tend to see, the pitch coming out of their hand, the spin on the ball, what kind of pitch it is, a lot easier than someone who's hitting from the right side. And if Kyle Schwarber can get ahead in the count, maybe even draw some walks, that sets up the Hoskins, the Realmuto, the Harper, the Castellanos very, very nicely for some potential knocks. Of course, we know Kyle Schwarber is not going to steal a base. So it's going to take a few hits to get him around from first base to home plate. But if you can take advantage of that and let Strider pitch, that is, there you go. I'm going to make another key to the game. Let Strider throw pitches. Again, and I mentioned this earlier, I don't really know if he's going to be sharp or not. No one does. I don't think he's going to be as sharp as we've seen in the 4 times that the Phillies faced him in the regular season. The main reason I think that is because of this injury that has, kept him on the sidelines for 26 days. And in the grand scheme of things, that is a very, very long time. It's going to be a very electric crowd at Citizens Bank Park. Now, if you let Strider pitch, take pitches, get deep in counts, because he doesn't always throw a ton of strikes. He walks batters. He walked a ridiculous number in one of his first starts of the season, then he eventually started to figure it out. But that's not the point here. The point is he walks people. And I know this sounds like a very, I'm trying to think of a good word here, but for lack of a better term, a very babyish way of going about scoring runs. But it's going to be necessary. Give this guy credit. He is elite. This is, if I had to rank pitchers, he would be in the top 10, and the dude is 23 years old. Which is pretty cool, but he's a mustache. He's a rookie. This is what he's done this year is incredible. And I don't expect the Phillies to, put up 3 runs in the first inning, knock them out after only getting 6, 7, 8, 9 outs. He's going to pitch to as many batters and get as many outs as his pitch count allows. And that's the other thing. He's not going to go out there and throw 110 pitches. It's possible he's not even going to throw half of that. You need to get him out of the game to face that Braves bullpen. And of course, this is not an ideal game to be facing Strider because the bullpen for the Braves is going to be well rested and it's very deep. They've got a lot of arms in there, a lot of guys. They have a lot of guys that remind me of Andrew Bellotti. They kind of fly under the radar. Raciel Iglesias, since coming from Los Angeles Angels to the Atlanta Braves, has been absolutely electric. His stuff has been rejuvenated. This is a dangerous Braves team, and Spencer Strider starting makes it even more dangerous. So if Kyle Schwarber can get on base, the top of the lineup, work the counts, and the Phillies have a ton of guys who can do that. Bryce Harper, he's a lefty. He'll see the ball. Hopefully, he'll see the ball great off of Strider. And I know that there's going to be a slider coming at him. And for Harper, that's not going to be easy. But if he leaves one hanging, we know Harper will bang it. We saw him do that off Miles Michaelis. Game 2 in the Lou, right? He absolutely demolished that ball. 435 feet. The thing was killed. And Spencer Strider is going to be no easy task for Harper. Same goes for Hoskins. Hoskins has a great eye. Great eye. And Spencer Strider is going to walk people. I will continue to say this because that is the only thing that he does not do exceptionally well. I mean, exceptionally well, like off the charts. I mean, I told you, some of his statistics, his percentiles, are as good as they can get. Dude is crazy. Crazy. And I mean, we've seen him have just success over and over and over again in 2022. And while I don't think he's going to be deep, he might not have his best stuff. He's going to be a little bit rusty. He might walk a few more guys than he usually does, which again, a few more guys than he usually does, it could be a pretty substantial amount. But that is still completely relevant when you know he's going to be out there pumping at least 97, 98, maybe a little lower. He hasn't thrown in a while. He's going to battle through these hitters, and he is smart. He knows what he's doing, and he doesn't have a ton of experience. He doesn't have any postseason experience. But, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, neither does Aaron Nola. He's had one start. Most of this Phillies team, really outside of Kyle Schwarber, is not, a common guy you'll see in the postseason. I mean, outside of that one time with Chicago, Nick Castellanos losing franchises. Bryce Harper, he's a Philly. I don't even need to tell you that. They're a losing franchise. I mean, we can accept it. The Phillies are not a good franchise in the past 10 and a half years. They have not been good at all. Bryson Stott's a rookie. Brandon Marsh came from Los Angeles. We know all about the Angels and their problems. They might even be worse than the Titans. Matt Vierling, he's pretty young. He's a homegrown Philly. I mean, it's the same thing. Same with Hoskins, homegrown Philly. Real Muto, he came from Miami, of all places. Zach Wheeler, he didn't have none. Same with Wheeler, none. Eflin, none. He does not have experience. And if they can, kind of like reverse psychology it against Strider, there's a chance there too. So I know you might be thinking, I'm thinking to myself, that I'm cherry picking certain statistics or certain ideas, but that is the only way the Phillies are going to find success against Strider. I truly believe that this guy is going to win a Cy Young Award in the next few years. And I know that's completely irrelevant to today's game, but I'm trying to get the preemptive fact that if they don't have success, you cannot go on your Twitter and complain. They're so bad. We are awful. Could it have been bad at bats? Yeah, but I'd expect that. I mean, I'm telling you right now, Gene Segura, he's not going to touch the ball today. He's 0 for 3 with 3 punch-outs versus Strider. And he looked lost in all 3 of those at-bats. Absolutely lost. The expectations, I don't know where to put them right now. This is a very confusing matchup. Because I don't know how sharp he's going to be. I don't know how long he's going to stay in the game. I don't know where his velocity is going to be at. And I don't know where these Phillies bats are going to be. We saw them struggle. They've really struggled for a while now. It's a new place. You had a day off yesterday. Things have changed. This is going to be the most electric ballpark that all 26 of these Phillies players have ever played in. I can guarantee that. Because the Phillies fans are going to go wild. Now, I'm talking a lot here. I do want to take a quick timeout to address the standout stat, which is brought to you by SeatGeek. Also, please make sure to leave your questions below in the comments. I will answer those before we head off. But this is sponsored by SeatGeek. Want to stand out amongst ticket buyers? Yes, we know you do. Luckily, SeatGeek's got you covered. Their prices do indeed stand out, just like the stats I'm about to share with you. But before I share those stats, make sure to use code Philly Sports Report. Again, that is Philly Sports Report when you are checking out your first SeatGeek order. And guess what? You will save a whopping $20. Make sure to do that sooner than later. It'll help me. It'll help you. It'll help the company. And with the fans cheering at the ballpark, or if you're at a concert and you want to support your favorite artist, you're helping them out too. So make sure to get that done. So before we wrap this up, my standout stat, again, that's SeatGeek that is bringing this segment to you. I would like to focus on, yeah, I know, I talked him up a lot, but I'm going to go back to Spencer Strider. Go ahead, click off the video. But when the Phillies get shut out and however many pitches he throws, I'll just point you to my percentiles that I look at, right? The swing and miss, the strikeouts through the roof. And really, I already said my standout stat. It's that 40% walk rate. And we've seen that these guys, Kyle Schwarber, was atop the leaderboard in walks this year. So I do think that the Phillies having success against Strider is going to be the top of the lineup. It's really key in this scenario. Now, I do have a couple questions in the comments before I address my final statistic that I am going with. This is from Mario. It's a home game. That is key. That is 100% on point there. I mean, like I said, this crowd is going to be going nuts. I've seen a few things. Alex Carr told us that the CP is popping. Benjamin Goldstein said this place is going nuts. He was down at the tailgate. He's covering tonight's game. So, by the way, make sure to go into PhillySportsReports.com to read the post-game write-up from one of our Phillies analysts. Yeah, I do think that it being a home game is key. I think this can really spark a Phillies offense. They got shut out. It really hasn't scored much in the last, so off the top of my head here, I guess that would be, is it like 15 innings at this point? But I do think that, I mean, I've heard people say that, does this home crowd in Philadelphia put pressure on these guys? And if it does, they should not be Major League Baseball players, right? I mean, coaches will tell you that ever since you're in Little League. It doesn't matter. It's a game. Have fun. Go out there. And, of course, this is more than a game for them. It's their work. It's how they get paid for a living. They need to succeed. But in the grand scheme of things, having people cheering you on – having the majority of people cheering you on, if you know, then that shouldn't be an issue. And the people that are negative or are, booing or yelling things that are not appropriate, really, you just need to ignore those kinds of people, right? Because they're just trying to bring you down, and they're just trying to draw attention to themselves. And people who boo, I think, are just ridiculous because it doesn't help them. Do you think that they will go out there to try to boo? Of course they don't. This is from Evan. He said, who do you think is having a better – oh, my goodness. Bryce Harper has been tearing the cover off the baseball. He's got multiple hits. He's hitting 429 in the postseason. He's been absolutely gross. I mean, the home runs, the doubles, the hard hit baseballs, situational hitting. He hasn't always hit them hard, but he put a few balls right up the middle, and really that's what you need there. So, yeah, I'm going to say Bryce Harper. I mean, Kyle Schwarber doesn't have a hit yet, so it's hard to say that he's having any series. He's not even there. So, no, I would definitely say that Bryce Harper is far superior to Kyle Schwarber right now, although we saw, Kyle Schwarber be ridiculous with the bat in the regular season. Now, that is going to wrap up the show today. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Philly Sports Reports, PHLYSPRTSREPRTS. Use code Philly Sports Report for $20 off your first SeatGeek order. And make sure to remember that SeatGeek is the way to go. I'm Colin Daly coming at you live from the Philly Sports Reports live pregame show. The Phillies and the Braves are coming up in 4 minutes, so make sure to catch that one. Turn your TVs on before first pitch. Aaron Nola, Spencer Strider, going at it head-to-head in just 3 minutes. Everybody, thank you for listening, and enjoy the ball game. Go Phillies.